welcome back to the TaxTron Support YouTube channel. Today we are going to dive into a special deduction available to clergy members, the Clergy Residency Deduction. If you work in a religious capacity, this could significantly lower your taxable income, so let's break it down. So, what exactly is the Clergy Residency Deduction? If you are a member of the clergy, a minister, or a full-time worker in a religious order, and your work requires you to minister to a congregation or perform administrative duties for the religious organization, you may be eligible for this deduction. It is designed to help with the costs associated with living in a residence provided by your religious organization. Now, to qualify, you must meet two important conditions. Ordained, commissioned, or licensed. You need to be ordained, commissioned, or licensed to minister or serve in a religious role. Clergy duties. Your duties must include ministering to a congregation or performing religious administration. If you meet these conditions, you can deduct your housing expenses or the fair market rental value of the home provided by your employer. Here's what you can claim. Rent or housing expenses. You can claim the rent you pay or the value of the home your employer gives you. Utilities. You can also claim the cost of electricity, heating, and water. To claim this deduction, you need to complete Parts A and C of the T1223, Clergy Residence Deduction form. Your employer needs to fill out Part B and sign the form to confirm that you meet the required conditions. You do not have to file this form with your tax return, but you do need to keep it in case the CRA asks for it. Now, let's talk about what employers need to know. If you provide free or low-rent accommodation, you do not have to include the value of the accommodation and utilities equal to the clergy residence deduction in your employee's income when calculating income tax and CPP. But, your employee must give you a completed Form T1223, and tell you in writing that they are claiming the deduction and the amount. If your employee owns or rents their accommodation and is using an allowance from you, they might get a letter from the tax office. This letter allows you to reduce the income for which you deduct tax and CPP. Now, let's see how you can claim this using TaxTron. After logging in, you will see that I have already prepared the tax return for this individual, showing a total income of $85,000 with a refund of $510.03. Now, to report the clergy residence deduction, head to the Deductions section. Go to the deduction profile, check the box for work-related expenses, and click Next. You will be prompted with the question, "Are you a member of the clergy?" Answer yes and click Next. This will take you to the clergy residence deduction page, where you will need to enter some basic information about your housing and employment. The first question asks, did you receive free accommodation? This is where you indicate if your employer provided you with housing at no cost. If your answer is yes, select yes. If you are paying for your own accommodation, select yes. Next, you need to answer whether you own or rent your residence. This lets the CRA know how you are covering your housing costs. Select the appropriate option based on your situation. Now, let's move to the next section about taxable benefits. This is where you enter details about your housing and the income you earn from your qualifying employment. First, you will enter the number of months you lived in the residence during the year. If you lived there all year, enter 12. If it was only for part of the year, enter the specific number of months. In this example, let's say you lived there for 10 months. Next, you need to enter your income from qualifying employment. This is the income you earned while doing your clergy duties. Let's say you earned $15,000 this year. Now, enter the number of months you worked in qualifying employment. This is often the same as the number of months you lived in the residence, but remember that the maximum is 10 months. So, if you worked for 10 months, enter 10. Next, you will enter the actual rent and eligible utilities you paid or the fair rental value of the home, including utilities, if it was provided by your employer. In this example, let's say your rent and utilities for the year totaled $6,000. Finally, you need to enter any other amounts claimed by you or others for your accommodation. This is important if someone else, like a spouse, is claiming a similar deduction. If there is nothing to report, leave it blank or enter 0. To verify this field, let's navigate to Review and File and download Record Keeping. You will see Clergy Residence Deduction on line 23100 of your T1 General. And to know more about the calculator, you can scroll to the Form T1223 Clergy Residence Deduction form. And there you have it. Once you have filled out all the fields, you are ready to submit. Do not forget that your employer will also need to complete Part B of the T1223 form and sign it. You do not need to submit this form with your tax return, but keep it in case the CRA asks for it. That is all for today's tutorial on completing the Clergy Residence Deduction form in TaxTron Web. I hope this guide was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.